The last time you had a drink, a beer, a glass of wine, whatever it was, you probably didn't think twice about it. You just drank it. But what you did is one of the oldest things a human being can do. Older than writing, older than farming. In fact, it's older than humans. We didn't invent drinking. We inherited the craving. The story doesn't start in some ancient brewery a few thousand years ago. It starts about 10 million years ago, on a forest floor in Africa, with a small primate picking up a piece of fruit that had been lying on the ground a little too long. In 2014, a biologist at UC Berkeley named Robert Dudley wrote a book called The Drunken Monkey. His idea was simple. When fruit falls and sits on the ground, the sugars inside it start to break down. Yeast moves in, fermentation begins, and the fruit quietly starts making alcohol. So when our ancestors ate that overripe fruit, it gave them a faint buzz. They had no idea why. It just felt good, so they kept coming back for more. Over millions of years, they didn't just put up with alcohol. They evolved to hunt for it. The smell of fermentation meant ripe, energy-rich food. By the time humans showed up, the taste was already wired into us, and in 2015, scientists found the smoking gun, a single, tiny genetic mutation about 10 million years ago that made our ancestors roughly 40 times better at breaking down alcohol right at the moment they came down from the trees and started eating fruit off the ground. Which leaves one question. If the craving was that old, when did we stop waiting for nature to make it and start making it ourselves? The answer quietly breaks the whole story of how civilization began. Jump forward to 2018. Archaeologists are digging in a cave near Haifa in Israel, a place called Raqefat. It belonged to a people called the Natufians about 13,000 years ago and carved straight into the stone floor. The team finds mortars. When they test the residue inside, they find wheat and barley that had been soaked, sprouted, and left to ferment. That's beer, brewed in a cave 13,000 years ago. And here's the part that should stop you. The Natufians were not farmers. Agriculture didn't exist yet. They didn't grow that grain. They gathered it wild by hand. But brewing it was worth the effort. They cracked beer before they cracked farming. Because until this, the story was tidy. Humans settle down, invent farming, build villages, and only then, with grain to spare, stumble onto alcohol. Drinking came after civilization. Raqefat turns that on its head. These people were brewing while they were still wandering, and they weren't alone. About 1,000 years later, in southeastern Turkey, hunter-gatherers built something that should not exist, a site called Göbekli Tepe. Massive stone pillars, some over 10 tons, arranged in careful rings and carved with animals, built before farming, before pottery, before anyone there even had a permanent home. For decades, nobody could explain it. Why would nomads drag 10-ton stones up a hill and carve them by hand? What could possibly be worth that? Then they found the vats, huge stone tubs, and inside, the chemical fingerprint of fermented grain. People were brewing here, not a little. Enough for a crowd. The leading theory? This wasn't a home. It was a gathering place. People walked in from across the whole region to do something together, to feast, to worship, and to drink. And think about what a drink actually does. It lowers a stranger's guard. Around a fire, a little loose, rival bands who'd normally never mix could sit, share, laugh, and trust each other. Alcohol may have been our first social technology, the thing that let humans cooperate in numbers far bigger than family. Which feeds a question archaeologists have fought over for decades. Why did humans start farming in the first place? Patrick McGovern, the world's leading expert on ancient alcohol, has spent his career making one provocative case. We didn't start farming to make bread. We started farming to make beer. And his logic is hard to shake. Bread is work, grinding, kneading, baking. Beer is lazy by comparison. Soak the grain, leave it alone, and fermentation does the rest. And the pull to feel a buzz is a far stronger motivator than the wish for bread. If he's right, alcohol didn't arrive after we settled down. It might be the reason we settled down at all. By 7000 BCE, the evidence gets exact. In a village called Jiahu in central China, archaeologists open up old pottery jars. Inside is the residue of a fermented drink, made from rice, honey, grapes, and hawthorn berries. Chemical analysis confirms it. This is the oldest confirmed alcohol recipe found anywhere on Earth. And it wasn't crude. It was a blend, several ingredients, deliberately chosen and combined. Whoever made this knew exactly what they were doing. Then come the first cities of Mesopotamia, and they practically run on beer. And here's the wild part. some of the oldest writing humans ever produced, is about beer, clay tablets recording beer rations, the hymn to Ninkasi, a song to the goddess of brewing, that doubles as an actual beer recipe. Before writing told stories, one of its first jobs was keeping track of who got how much beer. And by the time of ancient Egypt, beer isn't a treat, it's the engine of everyday life. The workers who built the pyramids were paid in beer, around 4 to 5 liters a day, not coins, not just bread. Beer was the wage, and it made sense. The Nile was often filthy and unsafe to drink, but beer, thanks to the brewing, was cleaner. It kept people alive, where plain water couldn't. On top of that, it was food. Brewing packed in calories and nutrients, and for a man dragging limestone through desert heat, those calories mattered. Beer wasn't just a drink, it was lunch. Then there's the religion. The Egyptians believed beer was a gift from the god Osiris. It showed up in temple offerings, in burials, in medicine. Doctors stirred herbs into beer to treat everything from a bad stomach to infection. So a single cup was doing the work of a paycheck, a water filter, a meal, a medicine, and a prayer, all at once. And this wasn't one lucky accident in one place. Almost every human society on Earth, with no contact between them, found a way to ferment something. Grapes, rice, honey, agave, palm sap, maize, different continents, different thousands of years. The same answer. We are, deep down, a species that brews. So step back and look at the whole thing. 10 million years ago, your ancestors were drawn to fermenting fruit because it helped them survive. 13,000 years ago, they were brewing in caves before they could farm. 12,000 years ago, they may have raised the first monuments in history just to have somewhere to drink together. 9,000 years ago, they had recipes. 5,000 years ago, entire civilizations were running on it. Alcohol didn't show up after we built the world we live in. There's a real chance. It's part of why we built it at all. There's just one catch built into all of this. The same wiring that helped a starving primate find energy now lives in a world with a bar on every corner. The craving was a survival tool. We just built a world it was never designed for. So the next time you raise a glass, you're not just having a drink. You're repeating something older than your language, older than the day your species had a name for itself. The cups got fancier, the recipes got better, but the impulse is the exact same one that made a small, hairy primate reach for a piece of rotting fruit on a forest floor 10 million years ago. We didn't invent the craving, we just finally learned how to make it on purpose.